It's like, it is amazing, right? It is amazing that people in a crisis pray and God does miracles. Some of you, like me, have been around here at Concordia and Winding Walk long enough to remember some of the seasons when we were doing the same thing, participating all together in intense and continual prayer. From the time years and years and years ago when we were praying intensely and continually for God, what do you want us to do? What's the next mission? What's the next step for this church? And I never saw this launching a new church thing coming. And then, well, God, where? And praying and praying and praying for the land that we're now on, and seeing God provide and deliver. And then praying and praying and praying again, continually and intensely through the struggles we had with the city, and 12 extensions, and finally a city council overturning of the planning commission. And praying and praying and praying for, as we're opening the school, the number of students that we needed, and then seeing God exceed that number. And praying and praying and praying for intensely for a large number of baptisms. We had a goal of 100 in the first year, and we're a church of 100. We didn't hit that goal, but within 5 years we did. And again, amazing to see those miracles of God moving. Praying for people, for like Jim Kelly, who had an unfixable thing and ends up with a double lung transplant and lived for many, many more years. We prayed, we prayer walked, we had prayer vigils, we joined together, right, earnestly and fervently for a considerable length of time, and we too saw God provide in miraculous ways. But some of you are probably asking, as you're reading that story from Acts and as you're hearing that recitation of things we've seen here at Concordia, well, why doesn't it always work that way? I mean, shouldn't it? I prayed, we prayed together, we prayed really, really hard, we prayed intensely, we prayed with a lot of faith, and we didn't get what we want. Why? And some of you skeptics quite logically are asking, well, shouldn't it always work that way if in fact this God thing is true? I mean, if God were really God, and if he's really alive and active and concerned about his people and powerful, shouldn't people's prayers, not the one-offs, but the kind of intense, fervent, continual, with a lot of faith, all together praying prayers like we've been talking about, well, shouldn't those be answered? Again, pretty legit questions. And the answers to that, well, they're both simple and complex. We actually dealt with some of those things in the last couple of months. If you're interested, you can look at some of the things in our series on Job and suffering, and then in the recent series on prayer as conversations with God. We deal with some of those issues in both of those. Those are still in the archives on our YouTube place if you want to go there. The short answer for me right now is, I don't know why. I don't really know the whys of some prayers are answered and some prayers aren't. But over time, I've learned to kind of be okay with that. And also to understand that maybe it even reflects a little bit what we experience in daily life. And you parents out there, do you always give your kids what they ask for? Even if it's a good thing? Well, if not, why not? Probably because you see things that they don't, and you understand things that they don't. Or there's this Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayer, in which he kind of suggests that maybe sometimes the prayer that wasn't answered the way that you wanted to, it ends up being better that you didn't get what you asked for than if you had. And again, I'm wondering if some of you looking back on your life and your life experience can say, Oh, yeah, that's happened to me, and see some instances where that might be true. Well, those followers of Jesus who were in the middle of a crisis and they prayed in that crisis were able to do so and keep looking to pray to Jesus in that crisis, because instead of looking at these truths that they learned as contradictory, they were able to accept them as equally valid. The truths? Well, the first big truth is that God's always sovereign. And sovereign means that God's all-powerful, that God's almighty, that God's able to do anything, that ultimately everything bends to his will and control. In fact, that's how the prayers here in Acts chapter 4 and Acts chapter 12 start. "O sovereign Lord." It's like, God, you're in control. God, you made the world. You made the universe. You made everything in it. You ordained all things. You ordered the way things go. And ultimately, things are under your control. They believed as true all the time that God is always sovereign. Second big truth they believed was that God is always gracious and loving. And their proof for that was what they'd seen with their own eyes. They'd seen Jesus willingly suffer and die on a cross, and sacrificially for us. Right? And if that doesn't prove that God is loving, what does? But the third big thing, the third big truth that they believed, is that both of those things are true at the same time. And they're always true at the same time, even when sometimes it doesn't look like it from our experience. Even sometimes we look at our experience, especially in a crisis, and it doesn't seem to make sense. And the fact that those things can both be true don't seem to line up. And yet they believed that God is always good and that God is always able, and that both things are true at the same time. And so whenever a crisis came, what they did is they prayed. They said, yeah, we're going to pray. We're going to ask for help. We're going to ask for miracles. And it's because they were able to hold those things together at the same time.